You know, people have asked me, did your father ever have any after your mother died? Did he have? And it really, literally, he just didn't seem to have any. He had one secretary, a friend who went up to the ranch once, Miss Smith. But otherwise, she just came one time.
But it was your job. You did it. You put him in touch.
But
Actually,
he came home every night for dinner. And we had to have, for dinner, we had to have a meat, potatoes, a vegetable, and sometimes soup, and a dessert every single night, which we cooked, the three of us. And when we sometimes had a housekeeper, but often. But after dinner every night, he went down to the cellar, where he had, which was his therapy, I think, for being the father of 3 young children by himself, was 2 things: the ranch and the cellar. And in the cellar, he had a lathe. He had a metal lathe and a wood lathe. And what he did with his metal lathe, he'd buy great big long rods of brass, and he turned them on his lathe to make screws. People would say, "What did your dad do in the cellar?" I said, "He makes screws." Well, that's what he did do, but they were for the irrigation district, the whole irrigation thing up at the ranch.
How about the tie?
Oh, he always, and Bob saw a picture of him once with his tie. I never saw him without a tie, but he'd be over this lathe with his tie.
Oh no!
Flapping.
Yep.
He never got no sleepers. How they would stay for a while and then you'd get a knock on the door.
Well, we had, you know, he imported some of them down from the ranch. They were Okies who'd come out of the Dust Bowl, you know, and they'd come down from the ranch. And Joe, and then and then sometimes we'd have somebody, and then sometimes we didn't. The most successful one was a Danish woman, Hensine, and
Perry,
and her husband, and her daughter.
Her daughter Barbara.
We had a whole group.
Yeah. Mention his daughter Barbara.
And Ophelia.
Oh, really?
Ophelia was a
Maybe
big
that's
black
why Barbara's named Barbara.
She was
that was
She was at our wedding. I mean, she was the...
I think one thing we ought to discuss, though, is Dad's parties.
Okay, but first of all, who are all the little aliens? They look at these. They look like they're all little aliens from other. See the little aliens from other countries, from spaceships. I want to know what planet you are.
That was part of I House.
See
the little aliens?
Well, Barbara mentioned Dad's parties, and I must say, I can remember him saying to me once when we were driving up to the ranch, "Friend," he called me Frankie. The only thing in the world that counts is people. And he really, you know, that was what he really thought. But he loved, you know, he loved parties. I mean, and he had this, when he had the Challenge Cream and Butter directors come once a year.
Up in buses, yeah.
They would come in buses. There would be 100, 150. And Willie was the bartender.
Right.
And I made hors d'oeuvres in the kitchen.
And what we did, he thought anchovies were wonderful. I've always had a good feeling about that since then. But
3 anchovies on 1 piece of bread.
well,
it had to be done.
well,
just right.
it was very definite. What we had to do, we had to toast the toast, white bread, Wonder Bread, cut the crusts off around, slice it into 3 or 4 pieces.
Three,
and then we had. He apparently didn't know that anchovies came laid out. He bought them wrapped around capers, so we had to unwrap them from the capers and throw the capers away.
Oh, it's a tragedy. I know. Capers.
So that was one thing, and we always had pear and cottage cheese salad.
Oh, yeah.
And there was always a ham and roast beef and turkey.
and when we came back from the ranch, we'd always have a 5-gallon can of milk. And the first thing we'd do was decant the milk into little quart jars or something like that.
We had to do that every
And then
Sunday
we'd have
night.
Welch rarebit or something like that for dinner.
And they had this come right out of the cows at the ranch.
Oh yeah,
Hand milk.
unpasteurized.
Did any of you have to do the milking?
Did you get the chocolate out of
Did
the
you ever
black
milk?
cows?
Yeah,
Well, we tried it.
He delivered milk in a truck.
Antelope Valley Dairy.
Henry.
I was wondering, did you live in Temple Hill Drive all through like high school and college, or?
Yeah. Yeah.
What was it? I'm
And
sorry.
I
What,
lived there for 2 years afterwards.
where did you live? What was he asking?
Temple Hill
Hill
Drive.
Lived
How
all
long?
free at Temple Hill
So
Drive.
from what year to what year?
I was afraid he'd ask what
Well,
time
It
when
was,
they put
they bought it
electricity
in
in.
1934.
34.
And then our mother died in 1935. So, that was. But then we lived there until I left. When I went off to Europe was when I left, which was 48.
That's before he married Irene.
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
yes. Well, it was just before
Just
because I
That's
left
Christmas.
I left in August of 48, and they got married in December
Christmas.
of 48. Yeah, and I wasn't here. I got. He
You
apparently
weren't there for
called
his
me in
wedding.
Paris to tell me that he got married. I had the feeling that things were
Oh,
going
I
to work.
thought
That's
you were with us, going to the wedding.
no, I didn't go to the
You
wedding.
didn't go?
I, I had the feeling that things were going to work. That's why I felt free to go, But he called me apparently in Paris and was told by Pat that I'd gone to Egypt. So anyway.
Did I understand he went kind of to rescue you from the Gaza Strip or something? And
Well, he got
deprogram you
a little
bit?
anxious about some of the letters I wrote home.
Yeah, so did my mom.
So, tell us about that. What was he concerned about, or what were you writing home about?
Oh, I was writing home, but particularly I was writing home about an Egyptian army captain.
And after all, she was 23.
How romantic.
And I saw a picture of him.